So a very good afternoon to all of you from Sandpoint High School and all the adults who happen to live here. So more than 10 years ago, I was a public high school teacher in Singapore for about 2.5 years. And so I'd like to share with you what I learned from watching the lives of two of my former students over the course of a year. And maybe there will be some helpful tips or insights for you as you embark on your journey toward adulthood. So I was the homeroom and English teacher of a class of about 40 students. All of them had already earned a certificate that allowed them to enter into a vocational school. But their dream was to go to a polytechnic, which is kind of like a community college. And for many of them, they would be the first in their family to go to community college. And so it was, a big deal. They wanted to stay back in the high school for another year to earn like an academic certificate that would qualify them for that. And everything hinged on a big exam that would happen at the end of the year. So once the school year started, all the teachers gave mock exams to the students so they knew what they were working toward. And when the results came back, at the very bottom of the class was a student I'm going to call Jean, and she had failed every single subject, straight Fs. She was very, very shy and quiet, so I didn't really know her. And just looking at the grades, I thought, maybe she should just go straight to vocational school. I mean, I don't know what we're going to do for her in a year. And then on the other end of the class was a student I'm going to call Ian, who had just passed every single subject, and he was very bright and articulate. So I thought, if this boy applies himself, he'll be one of those who make it. So every day we held review sessions for the students, even on Saturdays, because we knew that we were the best shot for these kids. None of them had resources to hire private tutors. And Jean came for every single review. And I would always see her working on her own outside of class, reading essays. She had a really nice little group of friends who would help her with math. So she put in a lot of effort. But at the 3-month mark, when we did another mock exam, she still failed every single subject, straight Fs. In the meantime, as for Ian, he did not come to most review sessions because, as I soon found out, he was the leader of a gang. So he was busy. He was a big man on campus, senior. And he had a very beautiful girlfriend who was in the dance club, so he had commitments. And one day, Ian decides to tell his girlfriend that she couldn't dance in the school show because the costumes were too revealing. And he didn't like it when other boys looked at her. She, of course, told him she was going to dance in the school show. She didn't care what he thought. He got mad, he slapped her, and that was the end of the relationship. So, of course, from this point onwards, Ian loses complete interest in his studies and, starts to fail. So, as you well know, most of the important lessons in high school happen outside of the classroom, I think. And one day, Jean and her best friend came to look for me, and they started to tell me about what happened in class. And one of the boys had been beaten up very badly in the bathroom by 2 bullies. I will spare you the details. And after they told me this, they burst into tears because they were terrified that if the bullies found out they had told on them, their lives would be at risk. So, of course, I assured these girls I was going to handle the case without revealing their identities. And after that, I really admired these 2 girls for speaking up. Even though Jean was so shy and quiet, I realized, there's a lot of courage in this person because they didn't even know that boy very well. He wasn't like a good friend. But they just couldn't bear to see someone harmed like that. And they knew, of course, the bullies were going to harm other people. So they were willing to stick their necks out and speak up with a lot of compassion and integrity. So that exchange left me looking at these 2 girls with a new sense of admiration. And at the 6-month mark, when we held these big mock exams again, guess what? Jean started to pass. And I tell you, that was one of my happiest moments as a teacher, just watching someone put in that kind of effort and grow on their own terms. So I got really curious and I asked Jean, what was it that kept you going? I mean, failing for half a year, most people would give up, right? But she didn't drop out, she just kept going. And she said that it was because she had a very clear dream. She wanted to become a nurse, and she knew exactly the kind of course she wanted to do at the Polytechnic, and the kind of grades she needed to get into that course. And she had gotten interested in nursing through an extracurricular. It's kind of like the Girl Scouts, but with the police cadet corps. So they did first aid, and she just really enjoyed it and wanted to help people. So that was just really clear for her, so she wasn't going to give up no matter what. And then maybe now in the meantime you're wondering what happened to Ian. He got suspended from school for 2 weeks at this point, very close to the final exams, because there was a boy in the school who stared at the girlfriend of someone in the gang. So they had to take action, to show this person who's boss, right? So the whole gang goes to confront this boy. And the way I recall Ian telling it, he didn't know what was happening, but suddenly he was raising his hand, and his hand just happened to connect with the other boy's face. So yeah, suspension. And I remember having a heart-to-heart talk with Ian. And he said, I guess I'll always remember this conversation because, it was the first time he was being open and honest. Behind that whole front of bravado, he said, do you think I like it that people are afraid of me throughout this school? He said, how do you think I feel when I walk into class and everybody just gets quiet? Then he said, I don't know how else to be. He said, I'm a bad person, I can't change. So for the first time, I saw this big, brave gang leader was just a scared, angry, ashamed person. So finally, the final exams roll around. And in the middle of the exams, where of course everybody is studying their tail off, Ian decides to go to his ex-girlfriend's house, and he waits by the elevator to see her. He waits all afternoon. She shows up, and when she sees him, she is terrified. She starts to run, and he chases after her, and when he catches up with her, she has a panic attack and passes out. So I think the message finally sinks in for Ian. They're not getting back together. And because of his anger, he has basically ruined some of the most precious relationships in his life, and he's devastated. I recall he just slept through the whole final exam, and so he graduates with straight Fs. He fails that exam. And as for Jean, she earns the grades to get into the Polytechnic nursing course. The last I saw her, she was on internship in one of the hospitals, and she was learning Korean just for fun. And after graduation, Ian and his gang friends get a job at a bar. I did go see them. I will not tell you what happened, but I just had to go out and see, what are these boys doing? But late one night, he's riding his motorbike without a helmet, and he's making an illegal U-turn. He gets into a terrible car accident. So he winds up in the ICU for quite a while. All of us went to see him and his family, of course. And I'll always remember the whole gang sitting there copying out the Heart Sutra in Chinese because a Taoist priest told them that would save their friend's life. The Heart Sutra is a very famous Buddhist sutra throughout Asia. So all these boys that I've never seen pick up a pen in class were all diligently copying this sutra, praying very hard for their friend. He did survive, and the last time I saw Ian, he was still in recovery, but that was more than 10 years ago. His speech was slurred from some of the brain damage. But I remember he told me he was a changed person, that he was going to try and make good, and he was going to go back to school. I sure hope he did. So what did I learn from these two young people's lives? That first of all, your grades don't reflect who you are as a person, and they don't determine your success or happiness in life. They're just grades. And what's really much more important is how you see yourself and how you see others, and the kind of inner qualities that you strive to develop. Because if you believe you're bad, right, you can't change. If you believe that the only way for you to make yourself feel better is to put others down, then, you create a kind of world for yourself, right? You can see the kind of world Ian created for himself, the results believing that had on him and his friends, and it doesn't make you happy. And whereas if you see yourself as someone with potential, right, you can change, you can put in effort and see results. It might take a while, but it pays off. If you create causes, they bring results. And if you treat yourself and other people with respect, right, you create a very different kind of world. You have relationships that you can count on, you have good friends, people help you, you help others. It's like a positive cycle that feeds itself. And I think most importantly, it's really important, as Venerable Children was saying this morning, to come back to our motivation. Right? If we have a good long-term intention, that helps us through any kinds of obstacles that we meet. Right? Like this, Jean wanted to help people, and the way she saw it happening in her life was through nursing. Right? So even though she was failing at the start, she had a clear goal, and she wasn't going to give up on herself. I think that was really important for her. And yeah, so take time, to come back to what it is that motivates you, what you think is going to bring meaning and purpose to your life. And if you're clear about that, then I think a lot of things fall into place and you're not going to get easily discouraged. Because, whatever you choose to do in life, there are going to be challenges. It's not going to be smooth sailing, but the important thing is what we do when those challenges come up. So here's wishing all of you all the best in your education and life. And please, you know where we are now. Come back and visit us anytime.